Clark Nuts for Art, and this is my friend Louisa Hamachek. Come out into the light a little bit. You look really dark. I don't know how we're going to find you, but it looks really dark.
You know how? I'm going
Walk
to get out
into
in
the
the
sun.
sunlight.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so we're out here at Cape Perpetua where we walked to Amanda's statue. We've been down to Neptune Beach. We met with Louisa up here at Cape Perpetua, and this is for Fukushima Day. This is what we're calling this 7 years of non-stop of the entire world governments ignoring the most important thing that there ever has happened on the planet. So, Lou, I wanted to ask you about the whole Fukushima thing. What's your take on it now that it's been 7 years of non-stop, the worst nuclear pollution that we've never seen a disaster like this? Am I incorrect in that?
It seems to be a good illustration that we got in over our heads.
That's a grotesque understatement, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like, really, I mean, honestly, we're over our heads.
I mean, that you had to go grab your friend's car batteries to try to save the world. I mean,
Right,
come on. Good thing it wasn't mine.
Right, exactly. And so, but it's still going on.
Yeah.
They're still lying. They're forcing the families. That's why we went to Amanda's statue, because they're forcing the women and children back into Fukushima. And they're supposed to just pretend, and there is like it's socially unacceptable to talk about the radioactive contamination because people don't want, they think that they're being told they're going to prevent their society from recuperating from this disaster.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Well, I think it's a time to out that type of information and point out its parallel with the Columbia Basin and the Tri-Cities, 250,000 people. Would they like to scrape up the dirt off of their backyards and put it in plastic bags and have it piled into piles in every neighborhood? That's
and burnt
what
and
could
incinerated.
happen in the next few seconds, because the Columbia Generating Station, the same model as the Fukushima Daiichi plants, the same exact thing, has the containment building with the nuclear waste stored up inside where it can all blow up sky high and go making particles in the air. And the wind can blow it. Like 5% of the time the wind blows down the Columbia towards Portland. And all those little particles are just going to come right down to that city of 250,000 and more like 500,000 in the metropolitan area of all the city area of Portland. And anyways, back out there right next to it at in Richland, Washington, are the Tri-Cities, and altogether it's another 250,000. The wind blows northeast, which it usually does, it'll hit Spokane
and
in
it
an
cannot
hour.
sustain more than a 6.0 earthquake.
Yeah, and most of it the particles will go up and they'll drop down nearby, like the poor people in Fukushima where it dropped on their dirt. The particles of the containment building that can blow. And the Columbia Generating Station is not passing very many tests for its durability. It gets shut down by its own SCRAM system every year, and sometimes twice a year. And sometimes they turn it on when they say, oh, it was just our emergency system, and we're not really sure what it was that went wrong.
Wow.
But it just keeps going, and it should have been turned off. When I heard about all that and read the economic analysis that was done on the Columbia Generating Station...
it's costing $500 million to the negative. Imagine a business staying open that's losing $500 million a year.
What does a Bonneville Power Administration, what is it? Is it a business? Or is it our government? If it's our government, we should have some control over it. They seem to have the control over whether the Columbia Generating Station goes or doesn't go. They're 85% hydroelectric of the dams of the Columbia River, but then for some reason they call the shots in our Northwest about the energy, and they pretend like it's a consumers cooperative, like it's a co-op. Energy Northwest is a cooperative of Northwest
utilities, and it's not
utilities, which they all know. They're like, some of them know they're part of it, but do they know they'll be responsible to pay for the disaster that it's being foisted on them because they get fed free chicken? Like Lane Electric Co-op gives us a chicken dinner up in Oak Ridge, and we all love Lane Electric, but they are part of Energy Northwest, which is part of which runs the Columbia Generating Station.
Yeah.
Nobody up in Oak Ridge, this ex-mill town forested 5,000 people has any idea about the Columbia Generating Station. They never mention it at the annual dinner of free chicken. And so we just let them do whatever they want to do. And that's the way they've been doing it. So I think we need to get on the boards of our rural electric cooperatives and work our way in Trojan horse, or just openly, and just bring it up at every board meeting that we need to call on the bigger cooperative that we're supposedly part of, the Energy Northwest, to shut it down. But that's right on the Hanford site, run by the Department of Energy, and Battelle. Battelle is a corporation. The reason, if you read the Snake River Alliance's report on their other facility in our watershed, which is the Idaho National Laboratory, used to be Idaho Navy Nuclear Laboratory, and then it was INEL. Anyways, it began being run by the Navy for research and for training their people for the nuclear subs. But now it does a lot of different research, and it has 3 operating nuclear power plants that we supposedly don't have anything to do with, because it's kind of military, because it was run by the Navy. We can't go over there. We can't know about it. But we can know about the Columbia Generating Station, because they call it a commercial nuclear power plant, the Laos commercial nuclear power plant. They get our minds
sitting on 14
distracted.
earthquake sites. That's the issue. 14 active earthquake
At Columbia?
fault lines, yes.
Yeah, and a big honker. According to Sandy Doughton's article in the Seattle Times, that there's a big 10 miles down fault line that's part of the big plate tectonic movements that would be affected by the Columbia or Cascadia subduction zone earthquake that'll happen off there and go under the Cascades. Many people said, oh, it's not going to do anything east of the Cascades, that we shouldn't fool people with bad science and say that it won't. But I had a hunch it would, and then Sandy found these new, by magnetic resonance from the sky, they take measurements of the iron and the magnetism and the big things, the plates and stuff of our planet. And so that's only in the last 5 or 10 years, so you got to update on the what's being discovered. So once they found that out, they should have immediately said, okay, we shut it down every year, let's just not turn it on, especially since it doesn't make enough electricity to pay for itself. I mean, it makes it, and then they turned off all the windmills that they've put all along the Columbia. They didn't turn them all off, but if you watch them and drive like Biggs, Oregon, and you look across at them on the Washington side up by Goldendale, they'll be, every third one is not running around while the other ones are turning. They have it locked down because the Columbia Generating Station is running. That's what the gas station attendant said at the truck stop in Biggs. When I looked over there, I said, why aren't those things moving? And it would create too much electricity, which would lower the price they could charge us.
So they're turning them off so we don't get enough
lock them
electricity.
down. And at the point that they do shut down the Columbia Generating Station,
You know, this is the thing on the Fukushima day. It's been 7 years. They do not, they're just going to keep saying they know how to fix it, but they aren't. I mean, if they were investing money and figuring it out, they might figure out how to solve it. But it's pretty obvious they don't want to solve it.
It's a jobs program. That's what this wonderful fellow, what was his name? Years ago, I interviewed him. He was part of the Columbia Riverkeeper, and he put in a good bunch of years, and I'm embarrassed, I'm forgetting his name right now, but he called the Hanford Cleanup a jobs program where it just creates jobs, and if it doesn't work, the vitrification plant, then it...
I just saw an animal blowhole it up.
Oh, good. Yeah, whales. They should be coming north right now.
Look, I'm going to move it.
Yeah, they stay close to the shore when they go north in the springtime.
I mean,
after they had their babies in Mexico.
saw it blowing its air.
That's exciting.
I literally just
Maybe
saw
there's
it.
a rock out there that it was, but
No,
they should be
it was
around here around now.
definitively not that.
You go down, they're farther offshore coming down from Alaska in the autumn as they head down to the Baja, to Laguna San Ignacio and other bays in the Baja, where they have their babies and party it up and get pregnant. And they have a beautiful 1-year cycle for when they're going to have their baby. And so then they go up to Alaska and they eat all kinds of good food, not good anymore, but all kinds of that stuff, and then they go back down. And
Not
they have
good
their babies.
anymore.
It's too bad. Yeah, the wild Alaska salmon.
Oops, too bad.
The wild Alaska salmon is right where the curve of the currents come from Japan and curve over
I
there down to
know.
us. So all of that, and then those salmon are from the Columbia River, anyways. That's where ours go, is to Alaska from the Columbia. And the Columbia had,
It's
since
really sad.
you know, since the Cold War times, they were in the 50s and the 60s. They were running the cooling water directly through the 7 nuclear power plants making plutonium at Hanford, and that was polluting them and making it radioactive water directly, and
Oh my
shot
God.
that all right down the
Heidi
Columbia.
Lambert was talking about how, like, we've just been so radiated since World War II. If people even knew, that's why she says they don't take Fukushima seriously, because they know what they dumped on us during World War II during those efforts. Like, we're just super screwed. We have so much plutonium in the atmosphere and in the air.
Yeah. So, but there also is so much strength and beauty to nature and to ourselves.
That's true.
And there's a lot of positive thinking that I believe humans have a consciousness that, just even in meditation, with a positive picture in your mind of what you'd like, clear, beautiful water, healthy
Drinking
animals,
water,
jumping
yeah.
and leaping and happy, kids playing forever, all that can be created. And
With
that's
our
our
thoughts.
strongest power. If we've already poured radioactive stuff into that water, we must now give it all the love so that all those things can,
Generate life.
yeah. And so we've done this since the 50s or the 40s, this radiation stuff. And it's been 70 years or something now, I guess.
And
of
7
radiation
years,
pollution.
70 years plus 7 years. I mean, it's doubled down since Fukushima. It's the first time they just sort of stopped.
Sorry about Yeah.
There's Lou. Thank you, Louisa. I'm going to put this up on my YouTube video channels.
He's so beautiful.
3/11, 2018.
I think appreciating this beauty of this world is a good part of it. We shouldn't go around as miserable.
Thinking that we're all going to die. Well,
I mean,
you
we
know,
are all going to die. But
right.
let's pass it on to the kids that are
I like the
here
idea
and-
of giving our loving energy even into the radioactive contamination, because it's here.
Yeah, I have a friend, Jenny, who lives at Nye Beach in Newport, and she runs on the beach every morning, has for about 20 years, to bless it. She jumps into it. Even back then we were worried about the Georgia Pacific paper plant allowing pollution to go right out of their pipe out into Nye Beach. That was making a lot of the surfers sick. But Jenny, I said, why do you do that when we know that it's polluted? And she felt like it was to say, basta, I am not going to cave into this sad